Kalasan silanganan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manluluti, di ka pasisiil. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bughaw, may dalagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidinig. Lupa ng araw ng luwalhatit ng sinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pag may mga alis na pumatay ng dahil sa'yo.
From the beginning, mankind survived by following rules that are measured with faith and made with wisdom. It is written in Genesis chapter 6, verses 15 to 16. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. Capitalizing on the historical learnings of Noah on how the ark was built with precise instructions, Noah Business Applications has been meticulously designed to deliver substantial results that comply to the financial and operational requirements of various companies across different industries. The success of Noah Business Applications is rooted from its strong, proven, and sustainable implementation methodologies from appreciation session to knowledge sharing. Noah conducted 4 levels of tests before he let all the creatures out of the ark after the great flood. All these tests were written in the Genesis chapter 8 verses 6 through 12. These tests are paralleled with Noah Business Applications' 4 level of test, namely developers testing, system integration testing, quality control testing, and user acceptance testing. Today, Noah Business Applications advances the roles of enterprise resources planning from financials, financial consolidation, warehousing, production, banking, distribution, forecasting, planning and budgeting, treasury and loan management, realty, human resources management system, procurement management, project management, customer relation management, mobility, analytics reporting and dashboard, and data management. Noah, advancing the role of ERP.
People don't just build a home, they build a life. And Vista Land is with you in building a future worth living. As one of the leading integrated property developers and the largest home builder in the country, with over 40 years of real estate experience, and with about 500,000 homes built in 143 cities and municipalities, spread across 47 provinces all over the Philippines, Vista Land continues to build not just houses and condominiums, but community cities. Vista Land's version of integrated urban developments. Vista Land enables Filipinos to fulfill their dreams through low-cost and affordable housing units, mid-range priced properties, high-end luxury residences, and condo developments. These developments are located near prime areas that allow residents to enjoy their ideal lifestyle in their own communities. Since 2007, we have transitioned from being a home builder to an integrated property developer. Through our commercial establishments and other related developments, we've transformed our residential communities to an integrated development by providing them with malls, commercial centers, and offices to start with. 2014 saw the birth of our most ambitious project yet, Vista Alabang, our first communist city. This model brings the essential part of the Filipino lifestyle within one's reach and makes living a better life possible. And in the true spirit of nation building, we also reach out to our existing communities and even beyond through our CSR programs in order to help alleviate lives. The company believes that Filipinos deserve a quality lifestyle, a Vistaland standard of living. We aim to make quality homes attainable across various demographics and geographic areas, and to empower more people through commercial and retail projects that provide jobs, leisure activities, and accessible retail options. Through the years, Vistaland has become the country's preferred brand of housing. And we will continue creating communities that will help Filipinos build a future worth living.
The Philippines moves to the beat of progress. And no one knows its pulse like BDO Unibank. With leading scale and reach, the expertise and local knowledge to connect you to Philippine business. BDO Unibank. We find ways.
In a fast-paced world, finding the right fit is now more important than ever. As an international organization, we believe in integration, thinking globally and acting regionally. In the Philippines, through its local integrated firm, Uvillar Tedeja and Company, Mazars continues to build a strong presence across different sectors through different service lines. The combined experience of our over 80 professionals, 2 partners, and 1 principal drives our growth in audit, accounting, outsourced services, tax, and consulting. Our clients range from small and medium entities to large multinational companies. We help strengthen their regional presence through our integrated partner firms across the Asia-Pacific. Our international and entrepreneurial roots enable us to act as a bridge between businesses operating in the Philippines and overseas. At Mazars, our goal is to help you navigate the local business environment and connect you to global growth opportunities.
First Park Homes was formed from the partnership between Century Properties Group and Mitsubishi Corporation, having that goal to raise the standards of community housing in the Philippines without costing too much. Unlike other housing communities, First Park Homes is actually what they call the 4 C's. It's the brand pillars which they follow. It stands for complete, conceptive, connected, and convenient. Oh, complete because their homes are fully finished, which means the walls are painted, you got your complete flooring. This place is secure and you got provisions to expand. Basically, all you need are your furniture and you're ready to move in. How easy is that? Conceptive because First offers amenities which go beyond the basic. Get this. For every subdivision, there is a specific theme for the amenities which can be enjoyed by both young and young at heart. They have amenities that promote the arts, encourage good health, build social development, and strengthen the community. Like for example, in Bulacan, they have these life-sized board games. In Lipa, they have traditional Pinoy games, and they even have an outdoor cinema. I think it's really amazing that they're introducing unique amenities for families to enjoy. First aims to keep everyone connected to life essentials. Imagine, they even have a shuttle to bring you to nearby transport hubs. Now that is hassle-free. Lastly, convenient. Owning your first home is now easy through First's simplified buying process. Owning a First Park home is more than just an investment. It's your first home that lasts.
Sante's Pure Organic Barley, certified organic by BioGrow from New Zealand, is nature's way to boost the body's immune system to fight off harmful infectious agents. Each glass is high in vitamins, minerals, chlorophyll, carotenoids, and it's gluten-free to offer all the defense your body needs to fight off infections and disease. A proper diet, exercise, and rest is also key in strengthening the immune system, which is the best line of defense against potential infections. So enjoy a glass of Sante's Pure Organic Barley with Stevia to boost your immune system and protect yourself from harmful infections that invade the body.
Morning, everyone. Let's get started. Honorable Carlos Dominguez, Finance Secretary. Honorable Francis Daquila Jr., Bank Central Deputy Governor. Dr. Ron Kian, World Bank Senior Economist. Ms. Sheila Lobian, Lobian Realty Group CEO. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's forum, Regroup and Rally, Bouncing Back Better. That also happens to be the theme of the 122nd founding anniversary of the Manila Times, which, as you know, was established this month in 1898. As part of our continuing commemoration of that milestone, we have organized this virtual event to once again focus on important national issues. Arguably, there's no larger issue today than the economy. From the first quarter of the year, the Times has organized economic briefings where we have invited Central Bank Governor, the NED Acting Secretary, and today, the Chief Architect of the government's Economic Recovery Program, Finance Secretary Dominguez. Unlike the previous briefings, today's business forum comes at a time when the government is gaining confidence on reopening the economy. In fact, our past speakers had alluded to this likelihood that the recovery that would start this quarter, when public transportation is expected to resume service. Here we are at that point. People are breathing easier as lockdowns are relaxed further. And contributing to our collective optimism is the fact that positive cases and deaths due to COVID-19 in the Philippines have remained low compared to many other countries in the world. Plus, Filipinos are already counting down to Christmas, as is tradition in this country. Perhaps our speakers will tell us later how the much-awaited recovery in the Philippines is shaping up. Is it a V-shaped recovery, or like a Nike swoosh, or maybe a U with a long trough? That said, we see dark clouds ahead that may complicate our situation. The pandemic is apparently far from over. And in fact, the proverbial second act may just be beginning, as evidenced by the resurgence of cases in the Northern Hemisphere, including the United States and most countries in Europe. We hope to discuss this with our speakers today, the impact of the protracted health threat to the Philippines and on the global economic recovery. Of course, there are other issues on the domestic front. Lawmakers are still working to pass the 2021 national budget on time, even after a continuous row at the House of Representatives. Past reports quoting legislators and economists have underscored the consequences of a reenacted budget. Given the opportunity later, we would like to ask that of our speakers as well. For sure, our audiences have other questions they would like to ask Secretary Dominguez and other speakers. And like you all, we are eager to get started today. Before we do that, allow me to express our appreciation to those who have made this event possible. Thank you to our co-presenters Infinivan, Noe Business Applications, and Vistaland. Thank you also to our sponsors, BDO, Mazars, First Park Homes, and SunTrust, to our special partners, Lobian Realty Group, Maybank, and Sante. We also wish to acknowledge our partner organizations, the British Chamber of Commerce, the Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines, or FINEX, the Management Association of the Philippines, or MAP, and of course, our official media partner, the Manila Times TV. As usual, reports of today's forum will be published tomorrow in the print and digital edition of the Manila Times. Let me just add that the digital edition is a replica of our print edition, and during these times when people still feel some anxiety about going out, the digital edition is a convenient and affordable option for these times. Lastly, I wish to thank those watching this event on the Manila Times website and on our social media platforms. And so now let us get to our first speaker, our keynote speaker today, Secretary Dominguez. Allow me to introduce him. Mr. Carlos Dominguez has over 40 years of vast experience and an outstanding track record of achievements at the helm of various organizations in the public and private sectors. His expertise was born out of his experience as a shareholder, board chairman, and a member of over a dozen corporations across multi-industries such as power, agriculture, mining, banking, hospitality, real estate, and investment. Mr. Dominguez was also appointed as Cabinet Secretary thrice, Secretary of Environment and Natural Resources from 1986 to 1987, Secretary of Agriculture 1987 to 89, and currently a Secretary of Finance since 2006. Under his leadership, the Department of Finance was able to draft and introduce to the Congress the first of a series of the 30 administration's proposed tax reform packages, known as the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion, or TRAIN Act, less than 90 days from the time he assumed the cabinet portfolio in July 2016. President Rodrigo Roa Duterte signed into law the TRAIN Act on December 19, 2007. This was followed by other successes in the legislature, such as the passage of the Tax Amnesty Act, the Tobacco Tax Reform Law, and a new sin tax reform law which raised excise taxes on alcohol and electronic cigarettes. On its watch, the Philippines' key revenue agencies, the Bureau of Internal Revenue and the Bureau of Customs, also continued to achieve strong revenue growth rates. It was also under his leadership that the BIR was able to secure its largest tax element ever, amounting to about $600 million from a single taxpayer in Philippine history. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary Dominguez.
Thank you, Mr. Dante Francis Ang II, President and CEO of the Manila Times, senior officials of the Manila Times, BSP Deputy Governor Francisco Daquila, members of the business community, friends in media, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Undeniably, the pandemic and the measures to save and protect our communities from COVID-19 have been very costly to the economy. For the entire year, we project our economy to contract by about 6%. We have seen unemployment spike when the domestic economy was hindered by the lockdown. Our enterprises have borne the brunt of the economic downturn. Behind the headline numbers, however, there is some consolation. The most recent independent public opinion polls indicate that the Duterte administration's response to the pandemic is well appreciated by our people. The Pulse Asia survey showed that President Duterte received a job approval rating of 91%. It is fortunate that when COVID-19 crisis hit, the Philippines was financially ready. Since 2016, we have started building up our finances to support our aggressive infrastructure program designed to lift Filipinos out of poverty. Little did we know that this financial buildup would also serve to buttress our defenses against economic shocks. The game-changing reforms we passed over the last 4 years have strengthened our fiscal stamina. Without our series of tax reform, the rice tariffication law, and other far-reaching measures, the COVID-19 crisis would have inflicted much more pain on our people and on the economy. We thank our legislators for passing these measures on time. They have provided us with the necessary tools needed to fight the pandemic. By 2019, we were able to bring up our revenue effort to 16.1% of GDP. This is the highest in more than 2 decades. In the same year, we worked down our debt to GDP ratio to a historic low of 39.6%. The Philippines has the lowest external debt position among the ASEAN 5 countries. In 2019, we posted a 20.2% external debt to gross national income ratio. Our gross international reserves hit an all-time high of $100.5 billion by the end of September of this year. The buffer is sufficient for 10 months worth of imports. Our foreign reserves are more than our outstanding external debt, which stood at $87.5 billion as of June of this year. The crisis in the past had pushed the Philippine peso to depreciate together with other currencies of other emerging markets. Not this time. Today, the Philippine peso has appreciated by 4.3% against the US dollar. Our credit ratings have endured a global tide of downgrades and remain at historic highs. The strong fiscal position we had was an advantage. It gave us room to reallocate budget items to fight the pandemic. We were able to quickly access emergency loans from our development partners and the commercial markets at very low rates, tight spreads, and and longer repayment periods. This year, we expect to collect less taxes as we increase spending in healthcare and relief measures to prop up our country for recovery. The borrowings we have secured will help cover our revenue shortfall. Although there were enough excuses to grow the deficit and borrow more money, we have chosen to take the path of fiscal prudence. Our goal is to land our deficit to GDP ratio in the middle of our ASEAN neighbors and credit rating peers. This conservative approach will allow us to continue accessing the financing we need at favorable terms for the Filipino people. The Congress adhered to our prudent approach by passing two fiscally responsible measures. Both Bayanihan 1 and 2 recognize that the fight against the pandemic has an indeterminable timeline. This is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. We have to be prudent in the use of our finite fiscal resources. After all, it is the virus that ultimately dictates the timeline in this battle. Bayanihan 2 opened the way for the government to begin rebuilding our domestic economy. We have ensured that help is available to key industries without intervening excessively in the workings of the private sector financing. The credit programs under Bayanihan 2 will support rather than diminish the financial sector's continued strength and stability. For instance, it infuses additional capital to our government financial institutions, enabling them to expand lending support for enterprises in distress. This will have a large multiplier effect on economic activity. Every peso infused in our government financial institutions will generate around 10 times its value in credit. The additional capital will be used to protect the productive parts of our economy. The increased lending capacity will also enable our government banks to serve as wholesale banks and rediscounting agents for smaller and medium-sized banks and microfinance institutions. The Duterte administration is maintaining its commitment to ramp up infrastructure spending. With its high multiplier effect, the Build program will play a pivotal role in our economic recovery. Even as infections continue, it is important to begin the difficult task of rebuilding our economy. We are working closely with our legislators for the urgent passage of key legislative measures. We have ensured that these reforms will allow us to recover in a sustainable and resilient manner. We seek to lower the corporate income tax rate by 5 percentage points immediately and incentivize countryside investments. We aim to mitigate the threat of non-performing assets to our banking system. We want to support strategically important companies facing solvency issues. We also seek to provide greater support to the agriculture sector by increasing credit access to the entire agricultural value chain. The swift passage of our 2021 national budget is also crucial. It will provide us with the tools necessary to rebuild our economy. The Duterte administration's aim is to pursue a safe new normal while we strive for a better normal. We cannot completely lock ourselves up to avoid COVID-19 at the expense of other vital dimensions of our lives. We should take less costly but effective measures. We are doing our utmost to balance our efforts to revive consumer confidence and reopen the economy with health interventions. The progress we have seen in our labor market after a slight easing of mobility restrictions is very encouraging. Our unemployment rate in July of this year significantly dropped to 10% from a high of 17.7% in April, when strict lockdowns were still in place. The continuous slower contraction in manufacturing production also signals rising economic activities. The value of production index for the month of August continued to drop at a slower annual decline of 13.8% from a high of 40.1% in April. The volume of production index also continues to shrink at a slower annual rate of 9.9% in August compared to a high of 37.6% in April. The combined collections of the Bureau of Customs and the Bureau of Internal Revenue exceeded our revised target for the first 9 months of this year by 8%. These are strong indicators that the economy is starting to recover. While strengthening our health system, we also intend to continue finding more ways to help revive the domestic economy. We are turning this crisis into an opportunity to boost competitiveness of manufacturing and agriculture sectors. We support the rehabilitation of our tourism infrastructure and facilities. We are accelerating digital transformation of our government processes to drastically cut red tape, hasten the delivery of services to the people, and curb corruption. The Department of Finance is also studying how to tax the digital economy better. The regulatory mechanism should make certain that the shift to the digital economy will expand opportunities for legitimate enterprises. Our regulations should also protect the welfare of consumers. We will continue to maintain a pro-business environment for our enterprises to prosper. The entire global economy is expected to contract by about 4.4% this year. All our recovery efforts will face strong headwinds. By exercising prudence in the managing of our fiscal affairs, we are confident that we will outlast this emergency. Next year, we expect the Philippine economy to post a strong rebound. The challenges are large, but we are determined to build back a better economy that the Filipino people deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Secretary Dominguez. And Secretary Dominguez will just now move over to a more comfortable position. I just want to acknowledge my co-host this morning, Mr. Ben Kritz, a columnist at the Manila Times and fellow editorial writer. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning. Hi. Good morning.
And happy anniversary to us at the Manila Times.
That's right. We've been here for a long time, so and probably will be here for a lot longer. Although we can hope that it was under some brighter circumstances sometime in the near future. Although things are not as bad as they were a couple of months ago, and I have some questions for the Secretary about that as soon as he gets himself.
I think the Secretary is ready now. Good morning again, Secretary Dominguez.
Morning. And by the way, happy anniversary.
Maraming salamat po.
They're very rare companies that started in the 1800s.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I just want to start off the questions. You mentioned that the recovery program is more like a marathon and that you are expecting a robust recovery beginning in 2021. Can you give us a little bit more inputs on some of the assumptions that went into that forecast? Because, we're seeing a better situation now in the Philippines with COVID cases. But of course, what we're seeing around the world is a possible resurgence of a second wave. Hopefully that will not impact us the way it did in the first quarter. But maybe if you can talk more about that marathon or that recovery program that you see kicking off in 2021.
Well, what we are seeing is that by around the middle of next year, we should have a an effective vaccine in place, and that it will begin to be available here in the Philippines. That's number one. This morning, I just had a long discussion with our multilateral partner in the World Bank, and we talked a lot about this vaccine financing. I asked them to please work together with the other multilateral agencies like the ADB so that we are not duplicating our efforts with regards to vaccine. And we are tapping their expertise in identifying the vaccine, in financing the vaccines for the Philippines, and also not only just the vaccines itself, but the necessary infrastructure that is required for the delivery of the vaccines. For instance, cold storage is much needed for the vaccines to be effective. It's very easy to do it in the big cities. However, in the island communities, we will have to boost up our infrastructure for that. So again, my discussions with the World Bank, with the ADB, who are keeping a close tab on the developments of the vaccine, are very promising. But again, let's not forget that nobody is safe until everybody is safe. And it is our personal responsibility to keep safe. And it's not difficult, okay? Wash your hands. I mean, follow what your kindergarten teacher told you. Wash your hands. Don't spit on anybody. Keep a mask. Keep away from a crowd. That's really the basics. And I think everybody has learned that in the Philippines. And we hope that this beginning of our opening up of our economy will not result in a spike in infections.
Ben?
Hi, Mr. Secretary. Long time no see. As you know, I kind of like to look at shorter horizons. So what I want to ask you about is what would you like to say about the progress of the CREATE bill in the legislature right now, which is the third version. Basically the third attempt that we've made to pass this thing. And it is still hanging on the issue of the fiscal incentives. Is there anything that you have learned since the last time we talked about this, which has been quite some time ago, to help break the logjam this time? Because now it seems that it's become very imperative to get this corporate tax reduction across the table to support some businesses that have had a bad time the last several months.
Mr. Chris, this bill has been 25 years in the making. And I'm very happy that actually it's gotten this far this time. That it's actually being discussed in the Senate and the House, and that the issues are being aired in a proper way. I'm quite confident that our legislators will see their way in approving this very important piece of legislation, which really has two parts. The first part is reduction in the corporate income tax. Prior to COVID, the reduction was supposed to be 1 percentage point a year. But when COVID struck, I asked my staff to think about a big, significant drop immediately in order to keep money in the hands of the private sector, because I think it is more efficient that the private sector keep the money and invest in their businesses rather than give it to the government, and the government gives it back in different programs. As you know, the government is not exactly that efficient. So that's the first part of the program. The second part, and this is what we have been working on for 25 years, is the necessity for the country to rationalize its incentive system. We are the only country in the world that gives incentives forever. And I think, companies that have been receiving 40 years of tax incentives should learn how to grow up and compete in the world, okay? And be like, and all we want to be is like all the other countries in Southeast Asia, which have incentives that are time bound, performance based, and this is what we want to have.
Okay, let me
Go ahead.
ask you a quick follow up to that. And as you know, I'm on your team when it comes to getting the tax reform across. But let me play devil's advocate a little bit. There has been a proposal made in the Senate, I believe, to actually split the bill, deal with the CIT reduction immediately because no one has a real argument with that, and then take up the fiscal incentive rationalization as perhaps a separate measure. What do you think of that?
In the last session, there was an informal vote, and the vote was 10-4 against splitting the bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would assume that you would prefer that they didn't do that.
Definitely.
But if this drags on much longer, might that be a way to get things moving ahead a little quickly, or would you consider it? I mean, if things didn't move very soon.
We've gone this far already. I think we should go ahead with the whole package.
Okay.
Secretary, Secretary, speaking of legislative measures, are you comfortable about the support that you're seeing from Congress? I mean, in the past few weeks, we saw a bitter struggle for the leadership of the House. And even now that there has been a new speaker named, there are some lingering concerns whether or not the budget could be passed on time. Of course, they assure that they would be, but is there any concern on your part or on the part of the government?
I trust our legislators. They know what happened last year, okay? We had a terrible first half last year, and we had to scramble to catch up in the second half, and we barely made it, okay? But we did. But it affected our growth in the first half. So I think I'm very confident that our legislators are aware of that, and they don't want to a repeat of that situation, particularly now when we have a problem with this contagion.
Right. What would be the economic impact, you think, of a reenacted budget? I mean, if, of course, nobody wants that, but what is at stake?
What is at stake is our recovery. And that's a plain and simple. It's not a minor issue. This is a real serious problem, and we have emphasized this to the legislature, and I believe they understand it and will act accordingly.
Secretary, there's a question here from one of our viewers, Edith De Chow. She's asking about the government's assistance programs for SMEs. And this is an interesting question because, as we know, if we add to that the micro companies, they account for about 99.6% of all registered businesses in the Philippines. What is the government doing to help them out?
Primarily, the real problem of the micro industries or large industries, the real problem is the drop in demand. And that drop in demand has come about because of the restrictions in mobility. And, there's no other solution to this. And what we have to do is give people back the confidence that they can go out and shop, they won't get sick, that they will have proper protection, and that their incomes are secure for the future. So this is really the fundamental problem that we face. And that's why we have pushed very hard for the gradual reopening of the economy. But let me go back a little bit and remind people that we have actually given out 5 billion US dollars, okay? Around 250 billion pesos. This is the largest ever social program that the government has had. And we distributed this to 75% of the families in the Philippines. And we supported primarily those who are in need, as well as small and medium-sized companies by subsidizing the salaries of their employees. So we did quite a bit of the heavy lifting here. And of course, let's face it, there were some complaints with regards to the distribution, but we also learned something. When we distributed the funds to the employees of small and medium enterprises, when we distributed them through the SSS and BIR systems and credited their accounts directly, we estimate that 99% got their money. And there was very little coup or complaint that system. I guess we learned also that it's about time we really be serious about digitizing our economy, that we get our national ID program in place, that everybody starts opening a bank account.
Okay, let me go a little farther with the MSMEs here, because there have been some aspects of that whole topic that have bothered me. Now I know in the second relief bill there was a great deal of money made available for lending to MSMEs. But there seems to be going in two different directions, because in the 2021 budget, although there's no funds for the lending because that was already taken care of, but for instance, the MSME development program under the DTI has had its budget reduced. So are there other ways that the MSMEs could be supported, particularly since, as you say, demand, the fall off in demand is really the key to the whole thing. But correct me if I'm wrong, because so many, almost all of the business enterprises in this country are MSMEs, isn't that a great source of demand? And shouldn't we try to do something a little more about that?
Definitely, we have done it in two ways. Number one, on the macro level, we have assured people that that there is enough liquidity in the system, and that the interest rates are quite low at this time. This crisis is very unique in the sense that interest rates are low. Remember the crisis in 1997, when interest rates hit almost 30%. Now interest rates are low. Number two, there's a lot of liquidity. Our peso is very strong, and as I said, in some ways, on a macro level, I think we've done together with the central bank a real good job. And then on the micro level, we have infused capital into our micro lending operations of the Land Bank and the DBP. In fact, the money that we have there will probably generate 300 or 400 billion pesos in credit availability. Again, we've also put in 5 billion pesos in the guarantee program, Philippine guarantee, and that should generate close to 100 billion pesos in potential guarantees for MSMEs. So there are funds, and and these funds are put in a very effective way to use it.
Secretary, you said that the Philippines cannot shut itself off from the rest of the world. We have to, I guess, in a sense, to put words in your mouth, learn how to live with COVID. But how concerned are you about external factors? China seems to be doing better, but Europe is possibly looking at, again, considering lockdowns. The U.S. is seeing spikes of cases. And of course, there's the political storm possibly brewing in the U.S. We see disturbances recently in Thailand. How big of a factor will those things impact our recovery efforts?
Well, fortunately, our biggest trading partner is in good shape, and that's China. Our trade with China is around $50 billion a year, and that is double what it is of the US and Japan separately. So demand in China is going to pick up. It's going to buy our products, and that is good news for us. Other countries, of course, we are not so happy that Europe is really having a difficult time, and that the US is experiencing serious economic problems brought about by the COVID-19. So I guess, it's not rainbows outside there, but at least within our neighborhood, we are okay.
Sir, I know you were running out of time and you have another meeting, but let me just squeeze in this question from one of our viewers, from Mr. George C. He's asking about the implementation of the VAT for the housing, whether that will be postponed. I guess he's saying that the low end of the housing development market is struggling now. I guess he's asking about if there's any help for that sector that they can expect.
Not from the VAT. Interest rates are the biggest help to the housing market. And we've seen that prices have held steady. In some areas have actually increased. And I guess that is because basically interest rates are very low. People can afford the amortizations, and that's where the assistance is going to come from.
Secretary, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it very much. We hope to have you over again for another briefing. I know everyone is concerned about the economy, and this is something that of course, I think we would like to continue talking about in the next events. Thank you again, Secretary.
Thank you for having me. And again, please feel free to call anytime. Just text me first so that I can respond to your call. Thank you very much.
Maybe, sir, a final word. I mean, something that you would like to leave our readers with, our listeners with.
Yes. Again, I would like to repeat that defeating this virus is not just the government's problem. It is everybody's responsibility. And as I said, it is not a difficult responsibility to achieve. Just follow what your kindergarten teacher told you. Wash your hands, don't spit on anybody, avoid crowds, and thank you.
Again, Secretary Dominguez, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we move on to our next speaker, which happens to be the Deputy Governor of the Monetary and Economic Sector, Francisco Daquila Jr. Prior to his position as Assistant Governor, he was the Assistant Governor of Monetary Policy Subsector of the BSP. He provided highly technical advisory support on matters relating to the formulation, implementation, and assessment of policies in programs in his areas of specialization, which include monetary, external, real, and financial sectors. Before joining the BSP, he worked at the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, and at the Agriculture Credit Policy Council. He also previously taught at the University of the Philippines School of Economics and at the De La Salle University in Manila. He received his PhD and MA in Economics and BS in Economics, magna cum laude, from the University of the Philippines School of Economics. He's a lifetime member of the Philippine Statistical Association and the Philippine Economic Society, where he served as secretary and board member from 2005 to 2006. He's also a member of the International Input-Output Association, IIOA. He's currently an associate editor of the Philippine Review of Economics. He has published papers at the Philippine Review of Economics, Philippine Statistician, the Bangko Sentral Review, and the BSP Working Paper Series, as well as chapters in several publications of the BSP, including Money and Banking in the Philippines, Perspectives from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and the Philippine Central Banking, A Strategic Journey to Stability. Ladies and gentlemen, Deputy Governor Dakila.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Secretary Carlos Dominguez III, Manila Times President Dante Ang II, senior officials of the Manila Times. Good morning to everyone. First, I would like to greet the Manila Times on its 122nd anniversary and to thank the publication for the invitation and the opportunity to share with our stakeholders and the public the rationale between the policy decisions made by the BSP, especially as we emerge from the economic lows of the crisis to a path that is geared towards a sustainable recovery. A key takeaway from my presentation would be that an adequate response to this health crisis entails a whole-of-government approach, and that the BSP's policy actions are carefully calibrated to complement those done by the national government. Now, if I may move to my presentation, and the second slide in particular, my outline starts by sharing with you the different measures that the BSP has implemented as the pandemic unfolded. The crisis affected every one of us, but it is also true that the most vulnerable segment of our society were the ones most adversely impacted. Thus, like many central banks around the world, we acted swiftly and aggressively in order to prevent the health crisis from bringing about more sustained economic damage. Second, I will discuss the impact of the pandemic and of the different measures we have implemented thus far on the domestic economy. Lastly, as we are slowly emerging from the worst impact of the crisis, and as we are implementing measures to make sure that our path to economic recovery remains smooth and sustainable, I will be laying out the potential responses of the BSP, taking into account the consistency of such measures to the fulfillment of our price and financial stability mandates. If I may move then to the next slide. Now, acting timely and aggressively was critical in mitigating the economic fallout of COVID-19. As policymakers, we wanted to prevent the initial economic shock from having a long-lasting damage to the economy. The range of measures implemented by the BSP aimed at mitigating the economic fallout by providing additional liquidity to the financial system, thereby ensuring the continued availability of credit to critically impacted households and firms, and maintaining the smooth functioning of the financial system. Now, this slide summarizes the key measures undertaken by the BSP, and they range from a reduction of the policy rate by a cumulative 175 basis points. And the policy rate now stands at 2.25%. And this is the lowest on record. This has the impact of reducing the cost of borrowing money. The BSP likewise entered into a repurchase agreement with the national government amounting to 300 billion pesos, which was fully settled in September. Early this month, the BSP further provided the national government with an 540 billion peso provisional advance, and this will aid in the economic recovery process. The BSP reduced the reserve requirement ratio of universal and commercial banks by 200 basis points to 12%. Again, this is a historic low. The BSP likewise implemented targeted liquidity and lending operations. For example, it allowed loans to micro, small, and medium enterprises to be part of banks' compliance with reserve requirements. It participated in the secondary market for government securities to provide liquidity in the financial markets, and hence to ease the tightening of financial conditions that we have experienced very early during the lockdown period, and to maintain the flow of credit to the economy. And to likewise reinforce this, we initially reduced the volume offering in the overnight RRP facility. That is the key policy instrument of the BSP. We suspended term deposit facility auctions for certain tenors and temporarily reduced the term spread on peso rediscounting loans relative to the overnight lending rate to zero. And we also remitted 20 billion pesos in advance dividends to the national government. So moving on to the next slide. These policy actions were consistent with the inflation outlook, which remains the primary indicator that the BSP looks at, in accordance with its mandate of preserving price stability. So again, I'd like to reiterate that the 175 basis point policy rate cuts were possible as the inflation outlook has remained benign, with headline inflation remaining low and stable. The year-to-date headline inflation as of September stands at 2.5%, which is comfortably within the inflation target range of 2 to 4%. This is also reflected in the survey measures of expectations, in particular of the private sector economists summarized in this slide. For 2020, the analysts expect inflation to settle at 2.5%. And for 2021 and 2022, the mean inflation forecasts are at 2.8% and 3% respectively. What does this tell us? That inflation expectations are hovering close to the midpoint of the policy, rather the midpoint of the inflation target. And this is what we mean when we say that inflation expectations are anchored to the target. Now, on the liquidity front, the liquidity enhancing measures implemented by the BSP help to provide ample liquidity in the financial system, and thus to ensure that borrowing costs remain low and credit conditions are supportive. In August, as can be seen in the left panel, domestic liquidity, or M3, expanded by 14.2% year on year. And this was broadly steady compared to the 14.7% growth in July. Demand for credit remained the principal driver of money supply growth. Moreover, bank lending growth continued to slow down in August due to weaker corporate sector performance, declining loan demand, and bank risk aversion. So this is where we see the impact of the uncertainty following the pandemic. Data show that outstanding loans of universal and commercial banks, net of placements with the BSP, grew by just 4.7% in August, which is slower than the 6.7% expansion recorded in July. There was also a similar slowdown of loans to households, which grew by 12.9% in August from a revised figure of 17.2% in July, following the continued slowdown in credit card, motor vehicle, and salary-based general purpose consumption loans during the month. In the next slide, we see then that in accompanying this slowdown of bank lending to the productive enterprises, the liquidity injection has been channeled into corporate bond issuances. So with the low interest rate environment, bond issuances increased for the period of January to August. And year to date, they accounted for a 67.0% increase compared to the previous year. So we see now that the impact of the liquidity injection, the impact of the lower demand for bank lending has been mitigated by higher levels of bond issuances. And this, in the next slide, we further look at the impact of the policy rate reduction. And we see in the left panel that following the 175 basis point rate cuts, market interest rates have followed suit. For example, the IBCL rates have declined to near the floor of the corridor or near the overnight deposit rate of the BSP. At the same time, loans, and this is something that was discussed in the previous presentation by Secretary Dominguez. I've noted earlier that we made loans, new loans to MSMEs as eligible alternative compliance to our reserve requirements. And as an offshoot, loans to MSMEs have now reached over 106 billion pesos. This is as of the 20th of August, compared to just 9.3 billion pesos as of the 30th of April. We can see that in the right panel when we look at the blue colored portion of this chart. Now, again, loans to large enterprises are now at around 13 billion pesos, and that's the orange portion of the chart. And it can be recalled that on the 16th of April, um, we have approved the newly granted loans to MSMEs, as I've said, as alternative compliance with the reserve requirements, effective on the 24th of April. And on the 21st of May, we have also allowed newly granted loans to large enterprises as alternative compliance, effective on the 29th of May. And the effectiveness of these policy moves is underscored by the large increase in loans to both MSMEs and to large enterprises, as shown in the right panel of this graph. Notwithstanding the national government's efforts to provide support for sustained economic recovery, there remains considerable uncertainty, however, in the economy, as reflected by the overall weak business and consumer sentiment. I refer to the latest results from our consumer outlook survey, and also from our business outlook survey. For the third quarter of this year, from the consumer outlook index, the overall confidence index fell to a record low of minus 54.5%. This is the lowest that we have seen since the start of the nationwide survey in the first quarter of 2007. Now, the outlook for the next quarter is shown by the orange orange line in the left chart, and we see that it has also turned pessimistic, going into negative territory at minus 4.1%, and this is a reduction from a 9.2% level for the second quarter of 2020. And they again, the respondents attributed the negative sentiment for the third quarter to the COVID-19 pandemic. For the next 12 months, however, we have a more optimistic outturn. You can see that the green line has actually turned upwards. The green line referring to the overall outlook for the next 12 months. The value is now at 25.5% compared to the first quarter survey result of 19.9%. So you have an idea here that consumers expect that within about a period of 1 year, the economy is going to be on a much more, economic performance is going to be on a much more positive note. Now, similarly, when we look at business expectations for the third quarter, and this is what we see on the right panel, the overall confidence index has declined to minus 5.3%. And this compares to a 22.3% value for the first quarter. And for the fourth quarter of the year, the business outlook was also less favorable, as the next quarter confidence index declined to 16.8% compared to 42.3% in the first quarter results. And again, this is also attributed by the respondents to the COVID-19 pandemic. And in particular, the reasons cited were decrease in orders, sales, and income, and slowdown in business and economic activity due to temporary or permanent ceasing of operations and fewer clients. Again, attributable to the community quarantine. Now, in the next chart, and I think this is quite interesting because this gives us very high frequency data. And we look here at mobility trends data coming from Google for different sectors of the economy. And you can see there groceries and pharmacies, parks, residential, retail and recreation, transit stations, and workplaces. What we see here is that there has been an improvement in visits to places such as grocery and pharmacy, parks, retail and recreation. And of course, as expected, following the community quarantine, there is a lot more time spent by everyone in the residences. So there's a very big uptick in the amount on the upper right panel referring to the residential sector. We can see that in March there's a very large surge in the amount of time spent in residences. But we can see that there has been some recovery, although as we can see, the activity remains below that experienced before the onslaught of the pandemic. The recovery is highest for grocery and pharmacy, as expected. And then there's also been some recovery in time spent in workplaces. To some extent, this is also due to a lot of our workers now doing work from home arrangements. But you can see that in terms of time spent in transit, it's still at less than half of pre-COVID levels. Now, in the next slide, we look at another indicator, which is the Purchasing Managers Index, and this is one for manufacturing for the Philippines. And we can see the very big drop to just 31.6, a value of 31.6 that we experienced in April. We can see that that is the lowest of the index values since the time that the index has been constructed. But now, the latest outturn for September is at 50.1. 50 is the threshold at which the number of respondents saying that there will be an expansion in the in their orders, it's just balances those saying that there will be a contraction in their orders. So now at 50.1, this is just on the threshold of recovery. 50 is the threshold at which we can say that the number of orders now experiences an upturn. And again, amid signs of stabilization in the manufacturing sector, other factors that could stimulate domestic demand could come from improvements in the unemployment rate and recovery in remittance inflows. And these are summarized in the next slide. So with respect to developments in the labor market, in the next slide, please, on the left panel, we see that the double-digit unemployment rate of 10% in July translated to 4.6 million unemployed individuals. But this is a recovery compared to the 17.7% unemployment rate registered in April. By region, only the National Capital Region registered higher unemployment at 15.8% in July relative to April at 12.3%. The recovery has been faster in areas outside Metro Manila. And this also validates the analysis that the rise in unemployment is really mostly due to the restrictions that have been imposed. And we can see that these restrictions are more binding in the NCR region. Meanwhile, in the right panel, overseas Filipino cash remittances have risen for the second time in a row, posting a growth of 7.8% to about $2.8 billion in July 2020 from $2.6 billion in July of 2019. The recovery is to a 6% land-based workers' remittances, but this was offset in part by a 9.2% decrease in sea-based workers' remittances. For the period January to July of this year, the cumulative decline in cash remittances went down to 2.4%. And this is why we are projecting that for the entire year, remittances could decline by about 2.0%, which is an improvement over the earlier projection that we made of a decline of 5% in remittances. This is a positive development, and in particular, it supports our assessment that the external sector will remain manageable with adequate buffers against external headwinds. In the second quarter, as shown in the next slide, the overall balance of payments posted a higher surplus of $4.2 billion compared to a $991 million surplus in the same quarter of last year. And this came about because of the current account reversing to a surplus position compared to a deficit position last year. And we can trace this to a reduction, a more pronounced reduction in our imports compared to our exports. Both our imports and exports are expected to contract, as we shall see later on, but the contraction in imports will be greater. So all in all, we forecast that the overall balance of payments for the entire year will be at a surplus of $8.1 billion, equivalent to 2.2% of GDP. And the current account will swing to a surplus of about $6 billion, or equivalent to 1.6% of GDP, which compares to our earlier projection of a deficit in the current account of $1.9 billion, or 0.5% of GDP. Again, this comes about because exports are expected to contract by 16% for this year, but imports are expected to contract by 20%. Now, in terms of our external debt levels, our key external debt indicators remain at prudent levels, with the external debt to GDP ratio standing at 23.7%. And this remains one of the lowest compared to our ASEAN neighbors. So all in all, the prospects for the year and for the near term are summarized in our next slide. We expect a contraction of between 4.5 to 6.6%. Our economic activity for this year, but a recovery starting next year. But always our inflation target is exports and imports. Just note that okay, our imports are again expected to contract by 20%. Going forward, in the next slide, I look more at the in greater detail at the outlook for inflation. We see inflation within target over the policy horizon, but we will be at the lower half of the target band. We will be approaching the midpoint of the target band as we go to longer in the policy horizon. But we note that this is on balance, the projections are have a downside risk because of the possible impact of a disruptive pandemic on global as well as domestic growth prospects. So we see that the chances that inflation will be lower than what we had projected to be slightly higher than the chance that the inflation will be higher than the projected levels. Similar to countries around the world, we continue to see the need for a careful balancing act between opening up the economy to restore lost livelihood while ensuring that minimum health standards remain in place to prevent subsequent waves of infection from overwhelming our healthcare system. For its part, we continue to implement policies aimed at supporting economic recovery while remaining consistent with our mandate of maintaining price and financial stability. To this end, we actively support the enactment of several legislative proposals, including those listed in this act, including the laws pertaining to the secrecy of bank deposits, the Credit Information Systems Act, Agri-Agra Law, Financial Consumer Protection Bill, the Guide Bill, and the Financial Institutions Strategic Transfer Bill. Now, as key takeaways, again, we underscore that very early on, during this emergency, the BSP acted aggressively, easing monetary policy and launching several liquidity-enhancing measures to mitigate economic and financial fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as complementing the fiscal response from the national government. Second, while the economy gradually recovers from the worst part of the crisis, uncertainty surrounding the evolution of COVID-19 remains, and therefore that the BSP is prepared to use the full range of its monetary instruments and to deploy monetary policy and regulatory relief measures as needed in fulfillment of its price and financial stability objectives. With that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Governor Nakila. Ben, you want to kick off the questions?
Yeah. Good morning. It's been a while since we've seen each other, too.
Yeah. The last time was during an interview at Intramuros.
You were actually my first guest on TV here. If you remember
TV program.
that far. Yeah, that was another world ago. I wanted to ask you about the two important pieces of legislation that they're working on right now: the guide and the FIST bills. What are your feelings on their prospects? Are we going to see those? Are we going to see those passed and put into implementation pretty soon? Because those I think are pretty innovative measures. Actually, I was a little surprised that they came out. How is that looking?
Yeah, we remain very optimistic about this passage. Actually, in particular, the FIST bill is very proactive. If we note that what happened during the Asian financial crisis, the worst part of the crisis was felt before the necessary legislative legal infrastructure was in place. Now, now we are what the financial sector has entered, or we have entered this period of pandemic with a very strong financial sector, with the non-performing loan ratio at just about a little less than 2.5%. Now, coming from touching base with the banks, we expect that the NPL ratio could increase again as a offshoot of the pandemic. It could rise to about double that level, but this is nowhere comparable to the levels that we have reached during the Asian financial crisis. And now that we are at a more advanced stage of legislation, then that is a reason to be very to be on the optimistic side. And we fully support the certification by the President that the FIST bill is an urgent piece of legislation. And actually, just knowing that this will be in place gives comfort also to banks so that they can continue to lend to households and enterprises and to support their recovery efforts. And that is also shown by the data that I have cited, that our measures aimed at supporting the MSME sector has had their effect. And in particular, this is the sector that can be most impacted. Now, again, the guide bill mandates government financial institutions to expand their credit programs to assist key enterprises. And again, the appropriation to the Land Bank and to the Development Bank of the Philippines that is included with the bill will very greatly help in further extending lending support, this time coming from the GFIs.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Governor, I want to ask about the exchange rate, the peso. It's been
Yes.
performing quite well. Maybe if you can confirm to us if that's in fact the best performing currency now in our region, and maybe the questions about that are what do you attribute the strong exchange rate right now? Is it because the peso is strong, or is it because the other currencies are weaker now? And then another related question to that is there a concern there that is a bit too strong? I mean, is that going to have an impact, you think, on consumer spending going into the Christmas season?
Well, that's a very timely concern. Now we monitor several currencies. I'm looking at the year-to-date performance of selected currencies. Actually, in the currencies that we're monitoring, the peso is second in strength to the euro. The euro has appreciated year to date by about 5.2%, the peso by 4.7%. This is followed by the Taiwanese dollar at 4.5%, the yen by 2.8%, and the uh, yuan by 2.2%. Now, in contrast, the rupiah, that's the Indonesian currency, has depreciated by 11.3%, and the baht has fallen by 4.8%. Now, if I may link this to partly it's uh, because of factors that impact all of us, because the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is worldwide. But as you can see, because there is a lot of differences, there are a lot of differences in the performance of currencies in the region, then it must be because of factors that are peculiar to the Philippines. I would look also at uh, fundamental factors, structural factors. In particular, what I've said earlier, that imports have contracted. We actually expect imports to fall by 20% for this year. And that is across the board, all categories of imports, including imports of capital goods. And also partly because for oil, of course, we know that oil prices, although there's been some recovery lately, oil prices are still much lower compared to how they were last year. On the other hand, exports are also contracting, but they're projected to contract by just 16%. So what does that mean? Because of the restrictions in economic activity, our economic activity has fallen. And because of that, the demand for foreign exchange has also fallen. But going forward, as we open up our economy, and that is validated by the high frequency measures that I have shown earlier, including very importantly our purchasing managers index, then we can expect that there should be some recovery in the demand for foreign exchange. Although for this year, as I've said, the imports on the whole are still expected to be contracting more than exports. But if you can note at our projections for next year, the slide that I've shown, we're projecting imports to be recovering by about 8%. And this is also due to recovery of the infrastructure program of the government. So again, we say that the um, uh, peso is determined by the market, but whatever is the adverse impact on exports now is likely to be time limited. As the economy recovers, then the imports should also recover, and the exchange rate should adjust accordingly. And we just to say that what we have found is that our market determination, leaving the exchange rate to be determined by the market, is very beneficial to us. For once, it allows correct pricing of risks. Also, because people have gotten used to seeing the peso dollar rate move on a day-to-day basis, businesses have relied less on the exchange rate as a way of pricing goods. And therefore, the link between the exchange rate and the inflation rate has also gone down. Unlike in the how it was, I'm sure we all remember how it was in the 1980s, where any change in the peso translated to change in the prices. That's no longer the case. So that's also been very beneficial to us.
Okay. Well, I would say that the BSP is one of our real bright spots in this whole drama that we've gone through over the last several months. Comparing our figures with some other countries, you guys have kept us in pretty good shape. Any final thoughts before we send you off to lunch? We appreciate what you've shared. Certainly, food for thought and a lot to unpack. Any words?
Certainly, thank you for that appreciation. We realized early on that the impact of this pandemic may be unprecedented. It's not in recent. It's actually way back where we had a similar pandemic that caused a lot of uncertainty on the actions of both the public and the businesses. So the BSP acted early to support the economy, and in particular the value of all the combined value of all the actions of the BSP now amount to about 1.9 trillion pesos, that much. So this has helped to ease any concerns that we have experienced very early during the pandemic about liquidity freezing up. So now we have ample liquidity circulating in the system. And it's really when you look at the demand, on the other hand, for credit, that's been on the low side. Going forward, we expect that also to recover, but key to all of this is our ability to control the pandemic. So as long as that as long as households feel unsafe about going out, then as you can see from our real-time indicators, there's been some recovery. But in order for households to go back to uh, spending how they were before the pandemic, then the pandemic has to be controlled. And this is where we say this has to be a whole of government approach. And also, we need cooperation from the public. As Secretary Dominguez has said, proper hygiene is we can all do our share in helping to control the spread of COVID-19. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's a good reminder to end on. Deputy Governor Tequila, thank you very much for
Thank you.
spending our time with us today, and we wish you continued success with what you're doing there at the BSP.
Thank you.
Okay, so far we've heard from officials within our own government, and now I think it is time that we get some views from the outside, so to speak. Joining us is Rong Kian, who is the senior economist for the World Bank in the Philippines. She leads a team that develops programs to help improve the country's global competitiveness, which is a big subject for many of us, and resilience to natural disasters. It's perhaps appropriate that we're talking about this on a day that we are having a tropical storm pass overhead. She's also the macroeconomics and fiscal management expert behind the Growth and Productivity Report and the Philippine Economic Update. Prior to joining the team here in the Philippines, Rong was the country economist for Chile and Nicaragua in the Washington, D.C. World Bank office. And she specializes in fiscal policy, productivity, and growth, particularly in sustainable growth. Earlier in her career, she also did research on sovereign defaults and financial crises, which I think would be pretty interesting. And she cut her teeth as an intern with the U.S. Congressional Budget Office and the IMF while she was working on her doctorate at the University of Maryland. Would you please welcome Rong Kian from the World Bank. Good morning.
Good morning, Ben. Thank you for the introduction. I think someone will put my slide, but thank you so much for inviting me for the Manila Times to have this conversation about how the Philippines can build back better. And Secretary Dominguez and Deputy Governor Francisco have provided us a comprehensive view of the government strategy to overcome the impact of this pandemic, and they show recent developments, so I won't repeat those. But I want to amplify a few points on the global perspective on the impact of the crisis and the world that we are transitioning into, the opportunity to rebuild back better, and the hurdle that we need to overcome altogether. Next, please. So let me first start to show the next slide, please. The scale of this pandemic. We know that devastation caused by the COVID is common by everyone by now, but the extent is still striking when seen in historical perspective. The COVID pandemic shares some similarity with other crises such as wars, macroeconomic management, and international financial crisis. However, this pandemic combined the worst feature of all those crises: simultaneous supply and demand shock, domestic, regional, and global in scope, projected long duration, and a high degree of uncertainty. It has been described as the most adverse peacetime shock in over a century and the largest contraction in the global GDP per capita since World War II. A contraction of 5.6 is expected it's happened in the first half of the year. Next, please. So this is the global context. Now let's move on the East Asia Pacific region. EAP countries are exposed to the world economy through flow of goods, services, labor, and capital. Countries that are more exposed to the global demand are likely to suffer more by sluggish global demand. Relative to other countries, the Philippines' exposure to the world economy is medium in size and diversified among goods, services, and remittances. It is not surprising when you look at the right-hand side, which compared the second quarter GDP performance of between the Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, and Malaysia relative to the government lockdown measures. It's called a stringency index. The Philippines obviously has the highest one because we had 3 months of strict lockdown, while Indonesia, Thailand, and Malaysia has much less stringent index. However, the economic performance of Thailand and Malaysia surprisingly is close to the Philippine context. And this is because of how much more linked they are to the global economy. Next, please. The devastating economic shock led to loss of job and income. The latest World Bank Group projection suggests that the COVID pandemic and the associated economic crisis could push between 70 to 100 million people into extreme poverty. And who are these new poor that were pushed to the poverty during this crisis? They are likely to be living in urban areas because the large scale of economic activity went into halt during the pandemic due to the containment measures. They are likely to work outside of the agriculture. They are likely to have at least some secondary or tertiary education, working as dependent employees, and most likely in manufacturing and construction sectors. These global findings apply to the Philippines too. And these are the share of population that have purchasing power, who demand the bulk of goods and services produced in the economy, who send their children to school, who are the future of human capital of the country. Therefore, lifting them out of poverty will contribute to a faster recovery. Next, please. Recovery from the crisis depends on both domestic and external conditions. A key step forward to recovery is resolving the problem that created the crisis, which is the sustained revival of the domestic economic activity that requires successful containment of the infection, or at least their suppression at a rate that allow transition to a less disruptive smart containment strategy, which is the government is currently doing. But for countries in the region, the strength of recovery in the rest of the world also matters. Note that this crisis is not hurting only the present. It can also lower potential growth, which is the growth that the country can have in 10, 20, 30 years. Public and private indebtedness, along with worsening bank balance sheet and increased uncertainty, could discourage public and private investment in the medium term. Sickness, job losses, and school closure could lead to erosion of human capital and earning loss that have a lifetime effect. Firm closure and disruption in firm-worker relationship could hurt productivity, as well as the disruption of trade and global value chain. While the COVID-19 crisis will negatively impact almost the entire business spectrum in 2020, it will also lead to lasting transformation that will benefit certain sectors, starting with the technology and firms that enable online and technology-based services. E-commerce was another winner. In the week of March 22 this year, weekly download for shopping application in Thailand increased 60%, while Indonesia, Singapore, and Vietnam recorded a 10% increase weekly. The pandemic also brought about an increase in e-banking. In the case of the Philippines, the value of transaction through online banking increased over 600% in March before and after the lockdown. Yet these new opportunities require democratizing digital access to prevent low-income families that don't have digital access to be excluded in this process. If this digital divide is not addressed, this crisis could exacerbate the unequal access to economic opportunities. Next, please. In response to the shock, firms have turned to digital solutions to adapt to the new normal. In the Philippines, 42% of firms started using digital platforms such as Facebook, Instagram. 23% have invested in digital solutions, relatively well positioned compared to neighboring countries. However, the digital adoption was not even across sector, with close to 60% of manufacturers and close to 50% of education sector were the top two most enthusiastic new adopter of digital solution, whereas BPO and accounting and legal services firm intensified their use. But retail, food services, agriculture they didn't adopt as much as the others. And among the slightest obstacle for digital adoption, access to finance is the first, followed by uncertainty on demand and unreliable and expensive internet connection. Next, please. This forced shift to digital solution is not just a bump in the road before things go back to normal, but a fundamental reshuffling of the world that transported us to a new normal. In fact, if there's a silver lining to the current crisis, it is that it can serve as an opportunity for companies to make some fundamental shift and to implement structure and practices that will enable them to thrive. There are probably two kinds of attitude among companies adapting to the new acute disruption. Those that are using this time to plan their place for the next new normal, and those that are treading the water, waiting for the world to go back to what it was. It is highly probable that companies that emerge stronger from this crisis are those that innovate through it, using the current crisis as an opportunity to digitally transform their company. Where the Philippines has adopted quickly to the new normal in the last few months, as you see in these two figures, given its low base, it has much room to go faster in terms of adaptation and adoption to ride the wave of the new digital economy era. Next, please. Obviously, there are a few barriers to overcome to the growth of the digital technology in the Philippines. We know that internet connection is expensive. The Philippines has one of the most expensive internet in the region. In per capita term, the fixed broadband service is more than 3 times the recommended cost by UN Broadband Commission. Internet speed is also low. Philippine mobile broadband speed is half of the global average. And the 3G, 4G mobile average download speed stand at about half of the regional average. Broadband penetration is also low. The dominant mode of internet connection in the Philippines is 3G technology through mobile phone, which is a slower version of the mobile technology. For the Philippines, the World Bank has identified priority area to accelerate digital transformation. First is the upgrading of the digital infrastructure by encouraging private investment through removal of legal and regulatory constraints in the telecom market. One good example is the approval of the Common Tower policy. Second, promoting digital payment so we can harness market opportunity. The Philippine economy is largely cash-based, as only a third of adults have bank account. Only 5% use bank account or mobile money. 7 out of 10 Filipinos receive wages in cash. To increase use of digital payment, a national ID is needed so it can provide secure identity to facilitate account opening and know your customer procedures. In addition, despite the availability of and awareness of digital payment, many are still unwilling to use them due to perceived risk of digital transaction. So there's a need to create a stronger consumer protection framework that are conducive for the growth of e-commerce and digital payment by building trust between online sellers and consumers. Finally, the government could be one of the pioneers by using digital payment for payment of salary or delivery of social transfer, benefit, and pensions. The third point is on improving the efficiency of the logistics system. E-commerce growth requires logistic firms to rise to the challenge posed by the small parcel deliveries. This is important given that the cost of logistics in the Philippines is among the highest in ASEAN. Besides cost, the procedure and clearance of import and export goods remain time-consuming in the Philippines at 120 hours versus 56 hours in Vietnam and 50 hours in Thailand. To address this, regulatory requirements should be streamlined and follow international best practices. We recommend continuing to modernize custom processes through automation, including the online filing, processing, and payment. Finally, the most important point is to foster a conducive and competitive business environment that promotes competition and innovation, and cost of starting and conducting business to be low. This is particularly important as many SMEs closed during the pandemic, as they will have less buffer to endure and less access to financing. Moreover, policy need to be adaptable as new business models arise in ways that are difficult to predict and that can challenge traditional policy framework. Next, please, which is my last slide as well. So I want to finish by saying that this pandemic is an extraordinary shock. Yet there's always a silver lining in any crisis. Digital transformation could be one of them. Going digital helps business, people, and country to become more efficient and competitive. Digital technology enhance coordination and automate process in a way to improve operational efficiency and decrease cost. Digital technology support business continuity and resilience. And this is very pertinent to the Philippines, given the country is prone to natural disasters. Digital technology delivers inclusive growth through information sharing and service delivered to those previously unreached and unserved. All these benefits are possible if digital access is expanded in coverage, faster speed at a lower cost, so everyone can benefit from it. For a fast and successful digital transformation to happen, public and private partnerships are essential. Government provides policy clarity and direction, and to create an enabling environment for business to do what they do the best, seek business opportunity, invest, and innovate. Finally, I'd like to highlight a few things that the World Bank Group is doing to support the government in recovery from this crisis. We provide financial loans to the government through various projects or through budget support, but we also provide a lot of technical assistance in the area of the national ID, digital payment system, social protection delivery system, the tax reform program, disaster risk management and financing, ease of doing business, digitalization of custom procedure, among others. And more recently, I think it was last week, it was announced that the government and the World Bank Group will also provide financing for vaccine purchase and implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kian. That's very refreshing that we hear opportunities or silver linings in this health crisis. And I want to start off by asking you more about that. You mentioned that the World Bank is working with the Philippines on adopting a common tower policy. That has been a major problem here. What we've heard since the State of the Nation address is that the government has worked to reduce the number of signatures required to construct cell phone towers. But like you, we've been waiting on some announcement on a common tower policy. Maybe you can update us on that, if that has been embraced already as a policy, and maybe if what other hurdles remain in place to get that in effect.
Thank you for the question. Actually, that policy has been already signed in July, and follow up on the common tower policy, there was also a joint memorandum of agreement among different agencies to streamline the permit to get construction, which will reduce the number of days from 200 days to get all the permits to construct to less than 20. So this has been already approved, and also the common tower policy is very broad, that basically everyone can build a tower complying with basic requirement, and which also opening the whole sector for foreign investment, which was restricted before.
Are there any more hurdles in place to get constructions going?
Not in terms of regulatory constraint. I think now we are in this COVID, there's other consideration. But in terms of regulatory framework, now is very conducive for investment. And actually, there is already many newcomers registering to construct towers.
Thank you. That should alert our business reporters to follow up on that story. Ben, you want to ask some questions?
Yeah, I want to change gears a little bit. Let's assume that we do have a good digital infrastructure. We can dream a little bit. I know one of the big objectives of the BSP is financial inclusion, and I know that's become very important with the digitalization of transactions, especially with the pandemic. I'm just curious, and if this is a question I should know the answer to, I'm sorry, but I don't. But what sort of technical assistance or other work is World Bank doing with like the DOF or perhaps the BSP as the banking regulator to support the financial inclusion and that whole objective, which has become kind of critical now. I have family in the province, and it is actually really critical now.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think in this particular question, the World Bank is supporting through two ways. First is the national ID. As you all heard, how critical it is to have a national ID so you can open a bank account. Otherwise, there's no way to check and to have a credit history. And the bank is involved very closely with PSA from the very beginning, from the design stage, and now more recently it was launched the pre-registration and for the mass registration to start in November. So that is on track, and the bank is very involved at the technical level. And the second aspect of the financial inclusion, we also provide technical assistance to BSP for the implementation of the National Payment System Act, which was approved, I believe, 2 years ago, to basically create a payment system that is secure and efficient, and designate the BSP to be the monitor to be mandated to monitor the payment system security and efficiency. So these are the two areas concretely that we are supporting. And the bank is also working with BSP to prepare a new budget support focusing only on financial sector.
Dr. Ken, you mentioned that, about 70 million to 100 million people have been pushed to extreme poverty by worldwide by this pandemic. And I was just wondering, I wanted to ask you a similar question that I asked Secretary Dominguez about the external factors, because as we're seeing from the news, especially news coming from Europe and the United States, COVID cases are again rising, and in fact, there is statements made saying to the effect that maybe we're just seeing the second wave, right? I was wondering if you can talk about that and how much of that will impact the region and maybe the Philippines.
This is a very timely question, and we don't know the answer because this could be the second wave. I believe Malaysia just went back to strict lockdown last week or the way before because they were comfortable where they were, having single-digit cases for a long time, and now suddenly it's over 600. So we cannot forget how important it is to keep the cases low and keep declining. This is the domestic front that is under the control of the government, every one of us, as Secretary Dominguez mentioned. But the global factor, the Philippines is more integrated on the trade side with the ASEAN, or with the China, Japan, Malaysia, Thailand, and they are. It seems that they are over the first wave. Hopefully, they don't go back to the second wave, and that will help the Philippine external side. But the good thing is the Philippines is a very domestic-driven economy, consumption-driven economy. As long as the daily cases continue to go down, people build confidence and people feel safe to go out, and that will boost domestic demand quite a lot. Coupled with the government 2021 budget, which is a very big budget, that will also not only on spending, but they will create new jobs through the infra project. So it's all relative. The relative to Thailand and Malaysia, the Philippines is less connected or less impacted to the global situation than them. But at the same time, we do receive remittances, which depends on the how other countries are doing. We do export both services and trade. So it's still linked, but to a lesser extent than Malaysia and Thailand, for example.
Ben?
Well, I wanted to ask another question about. I realize I know how MDBs work, so I realize you may not be able to answer some of this, but the push in the infrastructure is another big topic, and it may have become even bigger in the last few days because we've had an adverse report from the Commission on Audit showing that the DPWH has undershot its targets by something like 100 billion pesos. Does the World Bank have anything in the works with the government as far as either actual physical projects or any kind of capacity building, technical assistance, or budgetary support for accelerating infrastructure development, or are you just being an optimistic observer of what's going on?
I think we don't support large-scale project like the ADB, but we do have some different projects in tourism, for example, in water and also BRT. But I think we need to keep in mind that this government particularly increased the infra budget a lot during the last three years. And the implementing agency, which is mainly DPWH and DOTR, they didn't expand at a similar pace. Therefore, underspending or disbursing less than their budget is something that you can expect. There's just absorbed capacity limitation for those agencies. We don't directly engage into TA for these agencies, but we do have a PFM public financial management project with different agencies and overall with DBM to improve the process. DPWH is not one of them, but more recently we did a study on the disaster risk spending, post-disaster risk, disasters spending in the government, and see what are the bottlenecks. And there's mainly bottleneck in the PFM, public financial management system. That approval process is very lengthy. That could be streamlined there, so the flow of funds can move more quickly, and those repair rehabilitation project can be done more quickly post a disaster. But this just illustrate where are the constraints for flow of fund for a faster disbursement. But the next year, the budget in infra is quite even bigger. So that is something that the government needs to be, especially that the new budget will also be a cash-based budget, right? You don't spend, you lose the money for in 2021. So to bring some realism to this is how much actually they can spend will be important. So you can allocate the rest of the budget to something else that you will be able to spend and to create job or give assistance to the poor people. So I think that's something that during the budget process it needs to be very mindful, the absorbed capacity of the implementing agency.
Thank you. Clint?
Well, thank you very much. We have a lot of questions, I think, for Dr. Kian, but we're running out of time. Dr. Kian, if you don't mind, maybe we can have a round two just with you to thrash out some of these subjects. Maybe we can ask you for a final word, something that maybe we haven't asked or some other issue you'd like to mention.
I just want to make the emphasis that this shock, that is the digital transformation that we were all forced to do, is not a coping mechanism. It's a new era that if you don't get onto it, you're probably left behind. If you get onto it and embrace it, you will come out stronger. So that's my main message.
So embrace the new normal. Thank you very much, Dr. Kian, and I hope you don't mind. We'd like to reach out to you again soon and then have a longer discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben?
Okay, our final speaker today is an old friend of ours here at Manila Times, and quite an interesting quite an interesting addition to our lineup anytime that she joins us. Sheila Lobian is the Chief Executive Officer of the Lobian Realty Group and the Chairperson of the Women in Business Committee of the European Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines. And besides her business with her own realty group, she does, of course, the work with the European Chamber, and her company is a full-service real estate consultancy and property investment strategy firm engaged in commercial and office space leasing, which is something I dearly want to ask her about today, capital investments optimization, and property acquisition and sales. And of course, with her work with the European Chamber, she has a great advocacy for mentoring, networking, and supporting women professionals in the Philippines, which is a great service to everyone. Prior to her business with her own realty group, she was a regional director and head of project leasing of a Fortune 500 property consulting firm that was here. She was also general manager of Regis Manila and one of those who spearheaded Regis' then novel concept of shared and plug and play office spaces in the early 2000s, which have by now become commonplace all over. On February 17th of this year, she was presented the Woman Superachiever Award by the World Women Leadership Conference during the 7th WWLC Awards held at the Taj Lands End Bandstand in Bandra in West Mumbai, India. She is a tourism graduate from University of Philippines here in Diliman, and she took up the management development program at the Asian Institute of Management. She has an MBA from UP Manila and management executive program at the National University of Singapore and the INSEAD Business School. And she is actually my second favorite, Sheila. So welcome again, Sheila. It's good to see you. Tell us some good news.
Well, thank you, Ben. That's a long and a great introduction. Always happy and honored to be part of the Manila Times Economic Forum. And first of all, I'd like to congratulate my Manila Times family. This is your 122nd anniversary. That's too long, right? So congratulations, everyone. Clink and, of course, Ben, Blanca, and the whole Manila Times. My family, I consider you my family. Let me just pull up my screen first, my slide, before I start my presentation. Okay. Can you see it, Ben? All right. Okay, so when was that? I think early this year, right? Around Feb or March, we had the Economic Forum. And at that time, we were still able to hold it in a big function room in one of the big hotels here in Makati. Today is a different story. We're so used to doing webinars left and right. Zoom is part of our life, right? And it's the new normal somehow. So today, I'm after 7 months from the first lockdown. Now we're here and we're somehow ready. The theme right now is bounce back, and this is what I'd like to discuss. I'll be sharing with you an update about the property market. Quickly give everyone what's going on in the office market, the residential market. Pleasant surprise there. A lot of good news. Even Secretary Dominguez earlier mentioned about an increase in the price index, and the warehousing, the logistics market brought about by the increase in the e-commerce. Everyone's going digital right now, and somehow that's the brightest spot in the real estate market. So let me start by sharing my first slide. Again, looking at the top 10 countries affected by COVID-19. So you'll see that 9 out of 10 countries, they're all they will all suffer a negative effect. No, economically, they will feel the heat of the COVID-19. And only India is the one that's saying it's still a positive. India has a very big BPO industry. It's around 150 billion US dollars and counting. The Philippines is just around 28, 29 billion dollars. So a lot of room for growth there. Now, going closer to home here in Asia, this is a range based on the number of cases per million. And in terms of decline, Thailand is the one that is expected to post the highest decline in their GDP, followed by us here in the Philippines and then Singapore. Now, this whole thing as a world, the whole world's economy is expected to have a 5% drop in their GDP. And this has resulted to a global pandemic. And we're experiencing this recession, global recession right now here in the Philippines. Now, when you look at the Philippine economy, I always say that we have a very resilient economy. The same with the real estate industry, because no matter what happens in the economy, from the Asian financial crisis to the global financial crisis and all the natural calamities, disaster that we have experienced in the past, we are always able to bounce back. The two steepest decline in GDP, we saw that during the Asian financial crisis, and then recently in 2008, the global financial crisis. Today we have COVID-19, and it's a combination of both the health crisis and the economic crisis. And COVID-19 is more lethal and more contagious than SARS. Definitely, we've seen the biggest drop in our GDP. But the good news is, I always look at the bright spot, the good news. We've been 7 months from the time that we have experienced the lockdown. So far, we've learned how to live with the virus. Everyone, somehow there is confidence. The confidence is slowly going back in the market. People are so used to wearing their mask every day, face shield, social distancing, washing their hands, the basics, like what Secretary Dominguez has said earlier. And somehow that's the good news. And now let's talk about the positive things. What do we see in the next 12 months? Here are some of the key economic forecasts. So for the next 12 months, this is from the Trading Economics. I'm very optimistic, but at the same time realistic. And so we look at different key economic indicators also that will support how we see, how we feel, what's happening in the market at the moment. So GDP. They're saying that in the next 12 months, we will be able to recover and go back to the 5-7% level. And the employment rate as well will go up back to the 90s. The OFW remittances, as our Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas governor has shared, it has already recovered. And we've seen an increase last July. And in the next 12 months, it is expected to grow. The Philippine Stock Exchange, the stock market also has already rebounded. And that's good because that means there is already confidence in the market. The business confidence is there. And people are somehow ready to rebound, right? To bounce back again. Now, in the real estate market, we also look at several indicators. And us in the Lubian Realty Group, we look at these economic, real estate indicators. The first one is the GDP from construction. And if you'll notice, it is expected to increase also in the next 12 months. The building permits, we'll look at that. Obviously, during the lockdown, it went down because no one can go out, no one can start construction. But it is expected to grow. There's build project left and right. And a lot of developers are also thinking of doing several projects outside Metro Manila. This township mixed-use project, which later on I'll be discussing. And then the real estate interest loans. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas is obviously supporting this. Real estate loans coming from the residential market and the commercial market. The BSP's interest rate is very low. And the government also, the BSP, has also increased the real estate loan ceilings for the bank. So from 20%, it's now up to 25%. And that 5% will translate to about 1.2 trillion pesos. So that's a lot of money. So if one grade A building is around 10 billion, so imagine that 1.2 trillion pesos that will be out in the market can easily build what 100 grade A buildings. So, and that is directed to the real estate market, and that's good news for us. Now, going deeply, talking about the office market, very close to my heart. And I always say that it's one of the best barometers of a growing economy because, of course, once the office spaces are out there and built and taken, then that means there's job in the market. And when, of course, there's jobs out there, Filipinos will have the money to purchase, to buy, to fuel the market from restaurants to retail shop to, of course, buying their own condo or their own house and lot. The office market as we speak today is not very healthy, obviously, because everyone's working from home and the government has implemented the social distancing. But when you look at the office rental, a lot of people are asking, Sheila, what's happening there? Are we going to see a decline in the office rental rates? And the obvious answer, of course, is yes. So looking at our history in the real estate market, we've seen a decline during the Asian financial crisis. Rental has dipped by 10%. And then during the global financial crisis also, which is the most recent one, the one that I have experienced, of course, it's just how many years ago. And during that time, we've seen a decline at around 30% decline from the previous rental rate across Metro Manila. And so today, obviously, with the less demand, we can easily assume that we can see this 30% decline in the office rental rates. However, the good news is we have not really seen it today, primarily because very few transactions happened during the last 2 quarters, the lockdown in March and then the second quarter when the market just started to open and people are just starting to go back to work. This is where the prices right now. You can see that only Bay City is the one that posted a decline in terms of rental rate. A lot of Chinese, the POGOs are actually located here. But in the other CBDs so far, the average rental is still the same and some have increased. But definitely in the next few months or quarter, we will see a decline in the rental because of the low demand and many vacancies. The exit of POGOs is another story. Now, when you look at the supply, it's always about the GDP from construction. They're closely related, and the interest rate. And you'll note here that the very low interest regime that started after the global financial crisis have resulted to a very fast and brisk supply of office space here in the Philippines. And from 2010 onwards, we've seen the growth in not just in the real estate market, but the whole Philippines. We became the #1 call center in the world. Second, when it comes to voice, India is still the non-voice. India is still the #1 when it comes to back office, higher value work. But the Philippines right now is always on top of the choices of many global companies when they want to outsource their business to become, more agile and more efficient and cost effective. And this is the supply. The last, how many years from 2017 to 2019, that period in the real estate market, we've seen the highest in terms of supply that has entered the market, 1 million square meters of office spaces every year. And at that time, what was supplied was taken, and rentals have been increasing. And the last 5 years, we've seen the POGO, the Chinese gaming, and that has fueled not just the office market, but the residential, the condo market as well. Now, the next few years, hopefully, the low interest rate will be able to cushion the impact of COVID-19 in the office market. This is where the next 5 years, another 3 million square meters of office space will enter the market, and they'll be coming from Makati, Pasig, and Quezon City. Many developers are doing mixed-use office, condo, residential project in one area in all these parts of town. Vacancy rate right now is at still single digit, 6.4%. Average rent across Metro Manila is at about 1,200 pesos per square, and almost half, more than half of the supply this year were already taken, signed, lease, pre-committed. However, this 6.4% will definitely increase. You've probably have read the news and many talks about the Chinese gaming industry, the Pogo industry exiting the Philippines and getting many offices vacant. So easily this vacancy rate can double in the next quarter. And that's why our hope is that we will be able to support the outsourcing industry, the BPO industry, and that the current government will be able to support all the things that they need, whether from the tax, the incentives, etc. And the current government is actually promoting out of town countryside development. So this is the demand, and the demand driver right now will still be coming from the traditional office takers and, of course, the BPO, the outsourcing industry. And the BPO industry, they're still quite positive. They still expect to grow by about 6 to 7% annually, despite the global pandemic. And in the last few months, this is a report from the outsourcing industry from IBPAP. And if you look at this, from April to July, they were able to reduce their unproductivity rate and they're able to grow the work from home capacity. At the same time, you'll notice that people working on site is also growing from 10% in April. It's now up to about 30%, 27%, and it's growing. So the BPO industry were able to adapt right away, and they are able to, translate their employees. They're able to support their employees. And during the lockdowns, they made a lot of adjustment, either by providing shuttle for their employees or providing them housing them in condominiums or hotels near their workplace so that their people will not be exposed, shorten the commute, or just walk from their dormitories to the office. And this is a survey run by the industry as well. What's good news here is that almost half of them, well, not all the BPO industry responded to the survey, but majority of them, and almost half of them are still seeing some growth this year. Some said next year, they're delaying it. And then about 35% said freeze, no growth this year. And less than 20% are saying they will have to scale down or reduce their operation. Now, the co-working industry also is an opportunity here, and many BPO industry companies have used the co-working facility or instant offices all over Metro Manila during the lockdown and up to today, because obviously they cannot fully use their current office. They have to follow social distancing. And right now what they've done is decentralize the operation and use some of the temporary co-working spaces so that their employees will be near where they work. Now, if we go provincial, this is the current thrust also of our government to increase urbanization outside the metro and, of course, bring jobs also in the provincial part of the Philippines. And township locations, we have more than 60% of that outside Metro Manila, less than 40% inside the metro. And this is this is good. This is somehow to pandemic-proof the operation. So you live, work, and play in one area. Everything is walking distance, and all the things that you need can be accessible or can be accessed easily. This is also the next wave cities, and the outsourcing industry have identified some provincial locations from Baguio all the way down to Dumaguete, Cagayan de Oro. And the private sectors also will be supporting this by providing the infrastructure that a BPO would need. So the telecoms, the internet, buildings, lodging, hotels, etc. And we have so many things to do. Of course, the internet infrastructure of the country still need to be, we need to improve that to also increase our global competitiveness. And of course, to attract a lot of other global companies to outsource and put their operation here in the Philippines. This is the vacancy rate in the provincial area. It's double digit right now, but the rental rate is half of what you'll get inside the metro. And the residential market outlook, one of the, well, surprising thing in this pandemic, because a lot of people said there will be a decline there. But contrary to that, we have seen actually an increase in demand. And from here, you'll notice that the high-end portion has increased in the next 3 years. 60% more in terms of high-end condominium will be supplied in the market. Still, bulk of the developers in the country, they are addressing the need of the OFWs and the BPO workers. Bulk of the existing condominiums are in the 1.5 to 7 million range. And in the next 3 years as well, bulk of the supply are still within that range. Now, this is from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. And what's interesting here is that second quarter, they have seen an uptick. This is the residential real estate price index. And there was an increase in terms of price. And those increases came from the single detached houses and the condominium unit. And again, simply because during the lockdown and up to this time, a lot of us are spending more time at home. Almost, well, everyone, well, 50% are working from home, and the kids are doing online schooling. So there is a bigger demand now for house and lot, or a bigger condominium for those who can afford a new condominium wherein they have a bigger space, more natural light, open air, and more facilities for them to enjoy. And that's why we share the same, well, forecast of the trading economics, that the next 12 months, there will be an increase in the average housing construction cost. That's because of the need of the Filipinos for a more, well, higher value, a, well, better type of housing or condominium. And the tourism and hospitality industry, nothing much to say. A lot of them are just surviving right now, trying to either convert their facility or use the rooms as a quarantine site. The current Department of Tourism is actually pushing domestic travel, and they even run a survey and said, and in that survey, we learned that the majority of the Filipinos are now willing to do domestic travel around the Philippines, and 60% said they will really do so in the next 2 months. So those are the good news. Even in the tourism industry, we're seeing some recovery already. And the logistics market, I'm saving the best for last because this is the best part of the real estate market right now. It's a thriving industry, and the forecast is almost 9% growth every year for the next 5 years. It's projected to be a 1 trillion market by 2023. And we feel that in our business right now, we're very busy helping, assisting many of our clients in the warehousing logistics market. And they're growing not just here in Metro Manila, but nearby town. In the nearest would be Laguna, Cavite, and then further north, Bulacan, Pampanga. So what's fueling the growth in the warehousing and logistics market? Well, obviously, everyone's so used to buying things online. We can buy anything now online, from food to plants, right? And the revenue from the e-commerce industry is really growing tremendously, from a mere $500 million back in 2015. Last year, I think we've recorded $3 billion US, and it is expected to be at at $12 billion US in 5 years' time. So much opportunity here. That's why almost all the businesses right now are going digital, transforming their business. And even in the retail industry, there is now a component of things being online. So in summary, in the office market, what I'd like to really share is that it's going to be a tenant market in the next probably 1 or 2 years, because there is a lot of space out there. Demand might be, of course, demand is not that high compared to pre-pandemic time. Definitely we'll see a lower rental. But if the BPO industry will increase and continue to grow, and I think they will, because as company emerge from this global crisis, they will obviously find ways to be more agile, be more efficient, and cut on cost. And one of the best way to do that is to outsource none of your core work, none of your core staff. And the Philippines is already in the world stage when it comes to being the country to outsource their business. And for the landlords, I think this is the best time for them to take advantage of the low interest regime. To make a building or a condo would take around 2 to 4 years. And if you take that low interest rate right now and plan on something, your idle land, build a project there, then when it's available 3 or 4 years down the road, the market has already recovered and definitely you'll be able to monetize your property. And in the residential market, as I've shared, we are seeing an increase in demand for the the house and lot, single detached homes, and high-end condominiums, low-density condominium, and the township development. That is a way to pandemic-proof and make an arrangement for your house is there, your office is in the area, everything that you need is in one location. So it's the way to go, and township mixed-use developments are growing not just here in the metro, but all over the Philippines. And the warehouse industry, the thriving industry right now, it's growing primarily because of the growth in e-commerce. And bulk of the action, the transaction, they're still happening within the metro and anywhere near Metro Manila also, as long as it's accessible by land, that is growing. And companies who are involved in retail, e-commerce, fast-moving consumer goods, it's the best time to look for the best location right now to lower their cost and be able to deliver the goods fast and well at a less amount of money to their customers. And currently, as I've shared, the bulk of them are still happening in Metro Manila. And with that, if you want to know more about what's happening in the real estate market, you may follow us online, check our website. And this is the team, always happy to help you 24 by 7, 365 days of the year. So with that, thank you. And back to you, Klink and Ben.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sheila. I just want to confirm. You said I'm told you agreed to extending this program up to 2 p.m. We have so many. I think we.
Why not? Over lunch.
Thank you. So thanks again, Sheila. And I'm always encouraged listening to your outlook because they are giving some I think hope to the situation. There are a lot of things interesting that you said. I mean, there's this increasing demand for co-working spaces, but I guess I want to start off with how you see the new normal in terms of the office space. Obviously people are thinking about working from home these days. You said that that a likely response to that was this increase in demand in townships. But are companies now looking to lease bigger space? I mean, to account for distancing in the office? Is that something that we're seeing, or what other trends can we expect that will be part of the new office normal in the next coming months?
Very good question and hard to answer that. A lot of us are working from home right now. So in terms of demand, the office market, of course, right now is not that healthy. Demand is not high. Obviously, because number one, the transportation, there's still an issue there.
Yeah.
And that's why people are just working from home. If you want your employees to go to work, you have to shuttle them back and forth, right? To, of course, take care of them, make sure that safety is the priority. However, the BPO industry, they still have a lot of work that can't be just done at home because of security, privacy, and so many issues, especially if they're servicing banks or IT companies who are very heavy in security. So they would still want to be in a formal environment, in an office environment. And that's why I always believe that the office market will be there. It will continue. And most of the Filipinos, they don't have their own space so that they can really focus on work when they're at home. You have your wife, your husband, your kids going around, right? And a lot of uh, things disturbing you while you're at home. So productivity is really not that high. And the BPO industry right now, what they've done, they have decentralized some of their operations. So if they can't like house their people inside the office, some offices they have converted it. Their people are living there. They have like beds and all to make sure that they can do the 24/7 operation. Some are providing shuttles. Some have provided dorms, hotels nearby so that their employees can just walk and go to work every day. Um, Demand for now is not that high, but the BPO industry is still expecting growth. And that is good news. And I think it will continue. It's justified. There will be growth in the outsourcing industry because, as I've shared, when there's a recession and global crisis like this, big companies will look at being more efficient and outsource non-core work so that their costs will go down. And that's the thing that we've seen in 2008 when the global financial crisis happened. After that, when the market slowly started to recover and they were able to get their act together, we have seen the boom in the outsourcing market. And the Philippines have never been the same, right? We have a different city, different market right now because of the growth in that. So in the next few, of course, quarters, it will be quiet, depending also on what will happen with the Pogo. Slowly, they are exiting, but I don't know, they might come back or what, or another demand will come in. We are quite busy. There are a lot of foreign investors also looking in the Philippines to build mixed use project or to either do joint ventures. Some are looking at out of town, some are looking inside the metro. There is still a very good demand and interest here in the Philippines because they are saying this, investors are saying that, you know, the market outside in Europe, in US is not that good. And so the margin that they'll make out there will not be as good if they will build here or invest here in the Philippines. Well, a lot of risk, but with that risk is also big reward, right? So if they're able to execute their project and be successful here in the country, then they're expecting a bigger margin here in the Philippines. And that's good news for us in the real estate market and in the Philippines also, because that will bring jobs here in the country.
I wanted to ask a follow up on the Pogo. You mentioned that yes, some of them are leaving because of what's been going on with in China, and of course with the Philippine government's effort to tax them. Would you agree that they had maybe inflated some real estate prices, maybe in pockets of Metro Manila, and now that we are seeing some leave and a few, right? About 20 or so, I think, have left. But do you see prices in those areas falling, or will they maintain the prices that we're seeing now?
In terms of rental rate, definitely it will have a softening there.
Okay.
Easily 30%. I've shown you the data past history during Asian financial crisis, 10% down, global financial crisis, 30% down. And this is a combination of health and economic crisis. So yes, rental rates will definitely be affected unless demand will be so strong again, then that will question that. It will be a different story. But in terms of land value, you'll be surprised that many are looking at buying properties. Of course, those who have a lot of money are looking for good deals, right? Cash is king. And when you have the money, this is the best time to buy because many would be willing to sell. If they need money to be more liquid, then they'll be selling at a discount. But then land is finite, and that's why land values, they're constantly increasing over time. And condominiums now, well, as I've shared, people got, well, not really shocked, but during the lockdown, right, when you're in a small, compact place, it's not really good for your mental health. And so they realized that it's best to have a bigger space or a unit that has a lot of lights, window, you can open it, you can feel better after that, right? Instead of being enclosed in a small space. So, um, so many things there in play, but I think for the rental aspect, yes, we will see a slowdown there because many vacant units will be out there. And if the POGO industry will really go, then I don't think the BPO industry can just easily absorb what was left behind by these segment of the by by the POGO industry.
Okay. Ben, you wanna chime in?
You just answered one of my questions right there at the end. Because I was curious about what the prospects are of replacing the pogos, because I don't think they're coming back. But I had another question. In all of this generally positive news, or I would say perhaps more positive than we expected it to be, given what we've gone through, the hotel and tourism industry in general
They're just surviving.
Definitely not the bright spot. Do you look into your crystal ball a little bit? Do you see any signs of that recovering, or do you think that there is a certain part of that is just going to be, do you think that people's travel habits and tastes have changed? It's going to reduce some of that, because that was considered a big growth driver for a long time, and it's completely, and it's not just in this country too. I mean, it's happened everywhere, and it's completely gone away. Do you ever see that coming back, or within a time frame that is going to be useful to anybody? Inside of 3 years, 5 years.
Well, good news, good question, Ben. And as I've shared, the tourism, the hospitality industry, they are the hardest hit right now. And they're just actually surviving. They're trying to survive. Most hotels, whether 5-star, 3-star, or no star, they are just really either using the facility for quarantine services or, domestic tourism. But no one's going to go out and use and travel, right? People are still scared somehow to travel. That's why the Department of Tourism, they're doing so many things to promote domestic travel. But I think without the vaccine, people will not be confident to go out. It's the last thing that you'll do, right? To go out on vacation and travel. You'll start with the basics, the things that you need first. Either just to go out, like what the BSP governor said, the activities are mostly either going to the groceries or pharmacy to buy what they need. But outside of that, not really. Work, home, that's it, right? And the hotel right now, they're doing so many things to entice people to go there and eat. Obviously, no more restaurants, no more buffet there. And even their rooms, the occupancy is very low. They will already be happy if they reach 30%. But right now, they're just getting creative, either to offer it as a quarantine site or dormitories for the BPO industry. It'll take time until the market is open again and traveling and no more travel ban, and we have many foreigners coming in. Tourism, like what you said, it's one of the pillars of the Philippine economy. So tourism, OFW remittances, and the BPO industry, all of that are contributing to the Philippine economy. But today, tourism is really down. The hotels are just barely surviving. They're very affected with what's happening. So it's not a bright spot in that aspect for now.
Actually, you mentioned that there may be opportunity now to build more condos because as our previous speaker said, there are low interest rate. Are there any other opportunities, maybe particularly for people with liquidity left these days? Are there, for instance, condo units that are that they can scoop up because maybe of the falling demand on rental and whatnot?
A lot of, well, the good news is a lot of developers are giving good incentives and better payment terms. So if you want to look at properties right now, it's the best time to canvas and source. They, aside from the low interest rates that I've mentioned, BSP is supporting the real estate industry with that low interest rate and higher ceiling that they've given to the bank. So more money is out there for the real estate market. Landlord can take loans to start building their project, either office, house and lot, whatever they have in mind. And for the Filipinos, they can start looking at properties they want to acquire. If you want to talk to the developers out there, they have many incentives: no down payment, no reservation, just a very low monthly payment, which is very enticing and affordable for the locals who are employed, of course. And if you have a lot of money, cash rich, it's the best time to go on property hunting right now, because many owners there also are willing to unload their asset to be more liquid. And if you have that, yes, it's actually, there are so many opportunities. I always say that there is always an opportunity in the real estate market, in an up market or down market. So when the market is down like this, they usually, people are starting to look for good deals, right? But the good news is we're slowly recovering. And you can feel that when you go out. I'm in the office right now, and there are a lot of people now going in the office. Unlike before, when you go inside the mall, it's like a ghost town. Today, it's different. The feeling is different as well. And the activity that we see now in the market is also better compared to 3 months ago. The last 2 months, we've seen a lot of activities, primarily from the warehousing logistics market, and people looking at house and lot or a better condominium where they can stay because they want to upgrade. So there is movement. The people, my team now, they're busy compared to 3 months ago. And that's a good indication. And I'm sure other brokerage firms and people in the real estate market will also say the same, that there is now this pent up activity, pent up energy that we feel. And as I've shared, I can't just tell you the names of these investors or foreign groups, but we're busy discussing with them. They're looking at the Philippines either to acquire land or to have a partner. There are a lot of local players with a lot of land here, and they're willing to partner with them. So these are good news, and it's telling us that, you know, the economic indicators that I've shared earlier, and even our governors have shared a lot of things with us, that's supporting what we feel on the ground. And I think by next quarter, when we have another forum, economic forum, Clink, in first quarter 2021, we'll probably have a better story to share, right?
Well, I think before then I'll be reaching out to you to see where those opportunities are. Ben,
Happy to help you. Click anytime. Free.
Okay.
For free.
Thanks. Ben, you want to ask the last question?
Well, I just was curious if you've encountered anything really innovative. We were talking about something to replace pogos. One thing that I've heard in the last few weeks is that there are some companies that if they're not looking for a place to locate a BPO, they're looking for places to locate a data center. Which would seem to me to fall halfway in between office space and maybe the logistics property. Are we seeing any of that? And I just one other question that I had real quick is there was early on in the quarantine periods there was talk about things like rent relief, rent moratoriums, and things like that. Has that caused any lasting problems for everybody, or have property owners kind of caught up and got their feet back under them again from those real hard months we had a few months ago?
Okay, so and the first thing regarding data center, yes, that's another demand. A lot of, well, not a lot, but a couple of groups have approached us also, and they're looking at putting up a data center here in the Philippines. So maybe that's another source of demand for the next few months. And in terms of rental discounts, etc., as I've shared, it's going to be a tenant's market because of the low demand and higher vacancy. A lot of landlords have given discounts, but it's on a case to case basis depending on, of course, their relationship with their tenant. And today is the best time to talk to your landlords. If you're a tenant, today is the best time to talk to your landlords because they will be more flexible. But at the end of the day, we don't expect that they'll always give you discount because there is a contractual obligation, right? And as a tenant, you have to fulfill that. You can only ask them for some help, but really, they also have obligations. So just talk to the landlord, and if they are able to give you some discount, then be grateful for that because everyone is experiencing the hardship of the pandemic, right? There are a lot of good landlords out there, and they're very supportive of their tenants, especially if they know that the tenant has, of course, good potential to stay and their business is okay. They just need to support them for the next few months. So we see that happening right now.
Okay, I'm on mute. Okay, well, that's
We left Ben speechless. That's what happened.
okay, that's a better answer. You know, you'd think after doing this how many times I'd learn how it works, but I guess that's a new world for all of us. Anything last word for visitors today? I think you've left us on a high note. Have a parting shot that you'd like to make?
Similar to what I've shared before, in this time of pandemic, we just have to be agile, efficient, we have to innovate. And the digitalization is one of the bright spot. We have to embrace e-commerce. Everyone's going digital. So that's it. You have to adapt, right? Everyone's adapting. We just have to survive and move on right now. It's not good to wallow in this. I know there's this pandemic, but we see a lot of good indications that it's time to actually regroup and rebound. So that's the theme of today's anniversary, right? Economic Forum. Everyone's regrouping and it's time to rebound. And the next few quarters, hopefully, we'll have more good news to share, despite what's going on around us. So with that, I hope everyone's having their lunch right now. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, Sheila.
Thank you. Happy anniversary again, my Manila Times family.
Thank you. Well, with that, thank you, Ben, for helping me co-host this forum. I wish to thank everyone again for watching this, and for those who did not catch a live stream, recorded and edited versions of this program will be uploaded on the YouTube Daily Motion channels of the Manila Times. And of course, stories will be reported tomorrow in our print and digital edition. Once again, thank you and good day to everyone.
From the beginning, mankind survived by following rules that are measured with faith and made with wisdom. It is written in Genesis chapter 6, verses 15 to 16. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. Capitalizing on the historical learnings of Noah on how the ark was built with precise instructions, Noah Business Applications has been meticulously designed to deliver substantial results that comply to the financial and operational requirements of various companies across different industries. The success of Noah Business Applications is rooted from its strong, proven, and sustainable implementation methodologies from appreciation session to knowledge sharing. Noah conducted 4 levels of tests before he let all the creatures out of the ark after the great flood. All these tests were written in the Genesis chapter 8 verses 6 through 12. These tests are paralleled with Noah Business Applications' 4 level of test, namely developers testing, system integration testing, quality control testing, and user acceptance testing. Today, Noah Business Applications advances the roles of enterprise resources planning from financials, financial consolidation, warehousing, production, banking, distribution, forecasting, planning and budgeting, treasury and loan management, realty, human resources management system, procurement management, project management, customer relation management, mobility, analytics reporting and dashboard, and data management. Noah, advancing the role of ERP.
People don't just build a home, they build a life. And Vista Land is with you in building a future worth living. As one of the leading integrated property developers and the largest home builder in the country, with over 40 years of real estate experience, and with about 500,000 homes built in 143 cities and municipalities, spread across 47 provinces all over the Philippines, Vista Land continues to build not just houses and condominiums, but community cities, Vista Land's version of integrated urban developments. Vista Land enables Filipinos to fulfill their dreams through low-cost and affordable housing units, mid-range priced properties, high-end luxury residences, and condo developments. These developments are located near prime areas that allow residents to enjoy their ideal lifestyle in their own communities. Since 2007, we have transitioned from being a home builder to an integrated property developer. Through our commercial establishments and other related developments, we've transformed our residential communities to an integrated development by providing them with malls, commercial centers, and offices to start with. 2014 saw the birth of our most ambitious project yet, Vista Alabang, our first community city. This model brings the essential part of the Filipino lifestyle within one's reach and makes living a better life possible. And in the true spirit of nation building, we also reach out to our existing communities and even beyond through our CSR programs in order to help alleviate lives. The company believes that Filipinos deserve a quality lifestyle, a Vista Land standard of living. We aim to make quality homes attainable across various demographics and geographic areas, and to empower more people through commercial and retail projects that provide jobs, leisure activities, and accessible retail options. Through the years, Vista Land has become the country's preferred brand of housing. And we will continue creating communities that will help Filipinos build a future worth living.
Moves to the beat of progress. And no one knows its pulse like BDO Unibank. With leading scale and reach, the expertise and local knowledge to connect you to Philippine business. BDO Unibank. We find ways.
In a fast-paced world, finding the right fit is now more important than ever. As an international organization, we believe in integration, thinking globally and acting regionally. In the Philippines, through its local integrated firm, Villar Tedeja and Company, Mazars continues to build a strong presence across different sectors through different service lines. The combined experience of our over 80 professionals, 2 partners, and 1 principal drives our growth in audit, accounting, outsourced services, tax, and consulting. Our clients range from small and medium entities to large multinational companies. We help strengthen their regional presence through our integrated partner firms across the Asia-Pacific. Our international and entrepreneurial roots enable us to act as a bridge between businesses operating in the Philippines and overseas. At Mazars, our goal is to help you navigate the local business environment and connect you to global growth opportunities.
First Park Homes was formed from the partnership between Century Properties Group and Mitsubishi Corporation, having that goal to raise the standards of community housing in the Philippines without costing too much. Unlike other housing communities, First Park Homes is actually what they call the 4 C's. It's the brand pillars which they follow. It stands for complete, conceptive, connected, and convenient. Oh, complete because their homes are fully finished, which means the walls are painted, you got your complete flooring. This place is secure and you got provisions to expand. Basically, all you need are your furniture and you're ready to move in. How easy is that? Conceptive because First offers amenities which go beyond the basic. Get this, for every subdivision, there is a specific theme for the amenities which can be enjoyed by both young and young at heart. They have amenities that promote the arts, encourage good health, build social development, and strengthen the community. Like for example, in Bulacan, they have these life-sized board games. In Lipa, they have traditional Pinoy games, and they even have an outdoor cinema. I think it's really amazing that they're introducing unique amenities for families to enjoy. First aims to keep everyone connected to life essentials. Imagine, they even have a shuttle to bring you to nearby transport hubs. Now that is hassle-free. Lastly, convenient. Owning your first home is now easy through First's simplified buying process. Owning a First Park home is more than just an investment. It's your first home that lasts.
Sante's Pure Organic Barley, certified organic by BioGrow from New Zealand, is nature's way to boost the body's immune system to fight off harmful infectious agents. Each glass is high in vitamins, minerals, chlorophyll, carotenoids, and it's gluten-free to offer all the defense your body needs to fight off infections and disease. A proper diet, exercise, and rest is also key in strengthening the immune system, which is the best line of defense against potential infections. So enjoy a glass of Sante's Pure Organic Barley with Stevia to boost your immune system and protect yourself from harmful infections that invade the body.